soaring to untold heights, through days and darkest nights. Her song is all she knows, that gives her the wings to fly beyond her cage's doors into freedom's skies. Oh, she sees a shining bird with golden wings above, most beauty ever heard, such songs filled up with love, that causes her to sing and fly on golden wings beyond her cage's doors in the freedom's skies. Oh, 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 even the caged birds sing, dreaming of skies with wings, soaring to untold heights, through days and darkest nights. Their songs are all they know, to give them the wings to fly beyond their cage's doors in the freedom's skies, in the freedom's skies, in the freedom's skies.
It was fantastic chanting. Om Sam Gachadvam Sam Vadadvam Sam Vomanam Sijanatam Deva Bhagayata Purve Sanjanana Upasate Samano Mantra Samiti Samani Samanam Manasaha Chittamesham Samani Vaakuti Samana Hridayani Vaha Samanam Astuvo Mano Yataha Vasasati. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May we come together for common purpose. May our minds be united in the quest for higher wisdom. Common be our prayer, common be our goal, common be our purpose, common our ideal. United be our hearts, united be our intentions. Perfect be the harmony and the unity among us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Good morning, everybody, and happy July 4th. And thank you all for doing this. All of us really hate these masks, but you know, this is our part of our practice of freedom, is that we respect the freedom of others, and we also want to be free of these things. We also want to be free from this curse. So thank you for putting up with it, because we have to. So happy July 4th, everybody. Really, really happy July 4th. It's a big day for Americans, and it's really a joyful occasion. It's our Independence Day. It's our nation's Independence Day. It's our Freedom Day. On July 4th of 1776, our Congress declared itself, the country, to be free. That we were no longer a colony of Great Britain. We were independent and a free and independent nation. So it's really a perfect day to think about freedom. And it's a glorious day for Americans, but it's really a glorious day for anybody who wants to have freedom, especially that freedom of the soul, which is what we are all craving all the time. Freedom the idea of freedom is really central to us in Vedanta. It's a very important idea. It was a favorite subject of Swami Vivekananda. He said, all our struggle is for freedom. We seek neither misery nor actually happiness. We only seek freedom and freedom alone. Now that rings true for Americans because Americans love freedom the way Italians love food, the way Germans love order, the way French love everything French, the way Indians love chaos. Indians love everything. Americans love freedom. We crave freedom the way if you put someone's head underwater, that's how they crave air, that's how we crave freedom. It's part of who we are as Americans. Our Constitution is built upon freedom, not only our personal Constitution, but the Constitution of this country is built upon freedom. In our Bill of Rights, which is the first part of our Constitution, our Bill of Rights is built not on rules, but on freedoms. And this is really unusual. We take it for granted because we're born with it, right? It's not the usual thing. It's not built on rules, on freedoms. So our Constitution tells us our rights and our freedoms. It doesn't mention the rules. It doesn't mention what we should do along with that, but it's implied. Because every freedom has an accompanying responsibility. And freedom without the responsibility that goes along with that freedom is kind of meaningless. Because without the responsibility that goes with each and every freedom we're given, we have no society and we have no cohesion as a society. Now, Americans love freedom, but we're kind of less enthused about the responsibility part. But every responsibility takes with it freedom. We're able to enjoy right here freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. And there's not a lot of places around the world where we can actually do that. In this country, Hinduism's a minority religion. We can practice without even thinking about it. We don't have to worry about it. We have just put right into our Constitution this right. We don't have to worry about the knock on the door at night. So we really have to appreciate that fact because it's unusual. A lot of places we could never, ever dream of doing this. Yet all these freedoms, precious though they are limited because they're social freedoms only. And they're not really the spiritual freedom that we seek. We are all really seeking something like the ultimate freedom. It's no accident that this country was kind of built upon the idea of freedom because this country was built in the idea of coming for freedom, religious freedom. The colonizers who came to this country were Pilgrims, Puritans, those guys, and the Quakers. They came here for religious freedom because they were not doing well back in Europe. So they came to this country, and this country was built, created for religious freedom. Then once established, this country hatched religions of their own, which is again another unusual thing. The Mormon Church is an American-born church. Interestingly, so is Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is considered by the American Academy of Religion to be an authentic, genuine, American-born religion. In fact, just a few days ago, I read in America, which is a Jesuit journal. It's a magazine put out by the Jesuit Order of the Catholic Church. One of the writers for America wrote, "Our nation's greatest contribution to religious thought is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous." I read that, I thought, in a Jesuit magazine. Interesting. And then I thought, why does he say that? And I thought, well, Americans now, in fact, all over the world, people tend to shun what they call organized religion. Because organized religion is generally about you think this, you believe that, you follow this, you do that, these are the rules. AA, on the other hand, apart from saving millions and millions of lives and bringing freedom to so many people, has been a big, huge umbrella that no rules, no regulations, a belief in a higher power, however the individual envisions it. That has been the greatest success of a religion in this country. It's very interesting to think about. Now, all this is just to point out that We favor a more expansive view of religion and spirituality. And it's also to point out that religion and freedom are so important to this country and important to the practice of spirituality. The ideas of religion and the ideas of freedom have dominated this country from the country's inception through the history of this country up to and including the present minute. It's always dominated this country. In fact, people from Europe are astonished. In fact, when Alexis de Tocqueville came to this country in 1831 for his unbelievably accurate book, Democracy in America, he was like astonished that people took religion so seriously that it was like the biggest thing in their lives, that and freedom, and he deeply appreciated both of them. And this is why July 4th rings such an important note to us, why it really matters a lot to us about our ideals of freedom and democracy. It's interesting, July 4th is so important that 3 of our founding fathers died on July 4th. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, his biggest friend and biggest rival, and James Monroe, all died on July 4th. Swami Vivekananda chose to die on July 4th because he loved the ideal of freedom. He could have chosen any day he wanted, but he did everything he wanted to that day. He said, leave me alone, don't bother me. Chose that day to pass away. Swami Prabhavananda, the founder of this center, died on July 4th. He kept saying, what time is it? When he wanted to die on July 4th. Now the date was obviously extremely important to Swami Vivekananda because not only he chose to die on that day, he chose that day because he loved so much the ideal of freedom. And he loved America and Americans because we also took to heart that ideal of freedom and really lived for it. Swamiji even wrote a poem to the 4th of July, and he wrote it in Kashmir to his American students with whom who had come there to be with him. So imagine being on a houseboat on Dal Lake in Kashmir and Swamiji reciting a whole poem to the 4th of July to you as an American. So I'll just give you a few of the lines. He wrote, move on, O Lord, in thy resistless path, till every land reflects thy light, till men and women with uplifted head behold their shackles broken and know in springing joy their life renewed. I mean, to him, the idea of freedom was so significant. He gave so much freedom to his brother disciples, to his disciples, to his followers. He felt like you could never interfere with a person's spiritual progress. It was too important. Swamiji loved the American ideal of freedom, and he wanted everybody to be able to enjoy and really live a life of real freedom, not just social freedom, real freedom. So we celebrate the 4th with barbecues and patriotic songs and parades and flags flown everywhere and American flag buntings everywhere. It's a cheerful day. But what's the deeper meaning behind that? Freedom, and more than just any kind of freedom. It's spiritual freedom. It's the ultimate freedom. Swamiji said, freedom is the goal towards which we are all moving, every one of us, whether we know it or not. Now, when most Americans say they love freedom or they want to be free, that really usually means I want to be free to do what I want. That's the usual thing. The national anthem says, we're the land of the free and the home of the brave. And that's great. Remember, do you know that song? I'm proud to be an American because at least I know I'm free. And it's great to think that because it's true, but not in the way that most people think. Because that means like not elbowing other people out of my way, because freedom isn't being the Marlboro man. It's not, I'm going to do what I want, when I want, get out of my way because I'm free. Well, so is the person you just knocked over. That is not freedom. That is slavery. It's slavery to egotism and self-centeredness. That's not freedom. It's just unbridled egotism that makes that when we indulge in that kind of egotism and self-centeredness, We just put more shackles, more chains on ourselves and say, I'm free, add more chains, add more chains. Self-imposed chains are the most painful ones there are, and it's our choice to put them on and to take them off. So when people think about freedom, it's almost always the freedom to do what I want, to have things go the way that I want. That's what most people think about when they think about freedom. But as Nelson Mandela said, to be free is not merely to cast off one's own chains, but to live in such a way that respects and enhances the freedom of other people. That's real freedom. So this is where our egotism and our self-centeredness kind of cut into the freedom of other people. We have to be aware of that, because that's where our responsibility comes in, not cutting in and cutting off the freedom of others. And Vedanta says it's not freedom to, it's freedom from. It's freedom from. Freedom from bondage. Not freedom to do whatever I want, what I want, but freedom from bondage, that, especially that self-imposed bondage. Swami Vivekananda said, the person who has practiced control over themselves cannot be acted upon by anybody or anything else. It's control over themselves. He said, there is no more slavery for such a person. That person has become free because their mind has become free. That person alone, he said, lives well in the world. The person who has controlled their own mind. He said their mind has become free. And that's where it all begins, not out there. Freedom's in the mind. Sri Ramakrishna said, all freedom is in the mind and all bondage is in the mind. Because a person who has control over their minds has no hatred, has no anger, has no jealousy, has no self-centeredness, no cravings, no wanting more from other people, no lust, no the desires and the dislikes, the loves and the hates and the possessiveness that kind of whip us around like tetherballs. It's like, boom, boom, I like, I don't like, give me, no. I don't want this, I do want that. We're being tetherballed all the time by our own self-imposed desires, our needs, our cravings, our wants. When we take that tetherball away, when we let all of that go, then we rest in the tranquility of our own nature, which is who we are. That peace and tranquility that is ours comes to us because we're not being rocked by anger, by hatred, by lust, by greed, by jealousy, and all those lousy things that make us feel worse and make us feel smaller than who we are. All of us really desire freedom from bondage, whether we recognize it or not. All of us hate being caged in. We hate feeling that we're limited. We hate feeling like we can't do something because basically we feel this expansiveness within our hearts. The problem is we're the ones ourselves who are caging ourselves in. That's the big problem. We do it to ourselves. Swami Vivekananda, when he was in this country, and I think it was 1899, said, you may find many fools in this country saying, I am not bound. I am God himself. I am free. Let me do anything I like. And so Swamiji said, this is not right. Although he said it is true that the soul is beyond all laws, physical, mental, and moral. The soul, the Atman within us, is beyond all laws. So he said, within law is bondage. Okay, by law, I don't mean like getting the traffic ticket for speeding. By law, I mean like the universal natural law. We're talking birth, death, things mortal, dying, the law of gravity, the law of cause and effect. Whichever things you do, everything has an effect. The law of karma, all these things, law. Not like human-made law, but natural law. That we live in a three-dimensional world is law. That we deal with gravity is law. That we deal with cause and effect, this is what I mean by natural law. So he said, within law, within this natural law, there is bondage. Beyond law is freedom. He said it's also true that freedom is the nature of the Atman. That's who we are. He said it is its birthright. So we come to this sort of human conundrum, this contradiction, because we feel we are free, because we are. We are free, but reality kind of slaps us upside the face because we say, I feel free, I want to fly. But if we go on heading off that cliff because we want to fly, it may not turn out that well. So we feel like we should be free because we feel that innate freedom within us. But then reality slaps us upside the face. Do you remember the myth of Icarus? The old Greek myth, thousands of years old, where there's a boy, a young kid, who's been put into a labyrinth. I don't know what he did to do that. He must have offended some god or another. But he's put into a labyrinth. But he decides that he's going to be free. So he collects all the feathers from all the seagulls who've come and their feathers drop, and then he collects all the what do you call it, the wax from the bees, and then he makes wings for himself, and then he goes off and he flies and flies and flies, and he goes, but the problem is Icarus flew too high. Isn't that a metaphor? He flew too high, the wax got soft, he hurtled to earth, and he perished. And you know what? We hate it when that happens because we always side with Icarus. Because we feel the same thing. We also want to fly free, like the caged bird sings. We want to fly free. And so when Icarus gets knocked down to earth and he perishes, we go, damn that sun, damn it. And we're right to think that because our real nature is free, immortal, perfect. It's unaffected by the body. It's unaffected by birth and death. It's the soul within us is infinite, unborn, undying. What's the sun compared to the Atman? Nothing. Just a little star. It's going to be, the Atman within us is never going to die. It was never born. It's infinite. It can't be bound by anything. The sun's going to die. The sun's going to just be extinct like everything else on this planet, not the Atman. So it's like, We feel, sun, I'm going to remember this. I got you beat. I got you beat. We can't be bound ever. The sun will die. Atman is eternal. It's infinite, untouched by this, what we consider matter. Matter is what gets in our way. The mind is matter, subtle matter, but it's matter. The body is matter. We deal through time and space and causality. All these things get in our way. But the real freedom that we feel is the freedom of the soul, and that is the truth of our very being. The Atman within us is absolutely free, perfect. It's who we are. It's untouched by any of our anger, our hatred, our greed, our selfishness. It's untouched by other people's feelings about us. It's unaffected by our physical illnesses. It's unaffected by our physical ailments. It's unaffected by our moods. It's unaffected by Alzheimer's, by dementia, by insanity, by just plain stupidity. It's unaffected by that. It is the light of our very consciousness. It shines behind everything. The nature of our real being is pure, absolute consciousness itself. It is the light that allows us to have intelligence, the light that allows us to see everything, the light that allows us to reflect that divine light. It is absolute existence itself. It is the very nature of being, and is the nature of absolute, pure, unadulterated joy. That's who we are. And every time we look for something outside, we have to remember that it really is within us. All that joy that we seek outside really has its foundation within us, as does the light of knowledge that we seek. It's all within us. I often wondered when I was a kid growing up about why people seek freedom so much. I remember as a kid watching those old newsreels of people scaling the Berlin Wall. There was about a 98% chance they were going to get killed by a machine gun by all the guards in the towers. But they would have hundreds of people trying to go and scale those walls, to get over that wall so they could live in freedom. I thought, why? They could keep their head down. and just live, and they could live safely. And then when you get older, you realize no one likes to live in a cage. No one likes to live in a cage. People will cross the oceans in these tiny little boats, every chance of that boat not making it. People will cross the deserts and do anything to come where they think they're going to get a breath of fresh air and they don't have to feel that they're being persecuted or hounded. Because that innate freedom within us craves that freedom, craves that response of freedom on the outside too. And in order to have a real spiritual life, freedom is an absolute necessity. It's a prerequisite. Swami Vivekananda said, he said, freedom is the first condition of growth. Whatever you do not make free will never grow. We ought to remember that. Freedom is the first condition of growth. He gave such freedom to everybody else. Social freedoms are really important. We can't let them slide. But we have to remember also, they're temporary, they're arbitrary, they can come and go in a heartbeat, as we all too well know. They can be removed in an instant. They are at the mercy of the laws of nature and the mercy of the laws of society, just as our bodies and minds are. The goal of human life, according to Vedanta, is the ultimate freedom, spiritual freedom, freedom of the soul, which is what we're seeking all the time. The whole time we're seeking outside freedom, what we're really seeking is internal freedom, freedom of the soul, in moksha, spiritual freedom. Now, when we have moksha, spiritual freedom, that's when we enjoy real freedom, because then we are freed from the bonds of karma. What do I mean? Our actions, our thoughts in previous lives have created karmas for us, both good and bad. And we form a noose with those that drags us from birth to death, around a merry-go-round of birth and death and birth and death and birth and death. Our desires, our actions, our thoughts, both good and bad, create these karmas, which means that we will experience the results of those karmas either mentally or physically, in one way or the other, both good and bad. And these desires will create these impressions in our mind, and these will bring us back to this earth. So the goal for Vedantins is not heaven. That for us is kind of like a consolation prize. Meh. It's because it's a temporary location. That is where we go to experience the pleasant results of our good actions, our good thoughts. And there's another place where if you had a lot of bad thoughts, bad actions, you'll go to there and temporarily experience that too. And then, whoop, boom. After those have been experienced, we come back to earth again to experience the results of our karmas again. All those desires, all those things bring us back to earth again. And we go around and around and around. So yes, Vedanta believes in reincarnation, but it's not, our goal is not to go around and around and around on the merry-go-round, because it's just the same old stuff. Eventually you get kind of tired of it. You want to, and it isn't like it's sort of going to happen by itself that we'll get freedom if we just it's like the merry-go-round, and by the millionth birth you pull on the ring. It's like, yeah, you get off the merry-go-round. It doesn't happen that way. We actually make an effort. We actually have to get to work. We actually have to have spiritual practice, beginning with, this isn't enough for me. I'm tired of the merry-go-round. It's great for what it is, but it's what it is. I don't want to go through it ad infinitum again and again and again. I want real freedom, because eventually we all realize that we can't be satisfied with the tidbit freedoms, the tidbit joys. It's not enough for us, because we want infinite freedom, infinite joy, infinite fulfillment. And it absolutely will happen to every one of us, because freedom is our real nature, and we can't hide from ourselves. Our real nature will come through we cannot help but want to have that freedom. So eventually, we will all come to that state where we seek and get that ultimate freedom that we long for so much. It is inevitable because our real nature is the Atman. It's just being covered by this matter. Our real nature, the Atman, is absolutely one with Brahman, that infinite divine existence. Brahman is nature of absolute existence itself, absolute bliss. There is no place where Brahman is not. If we go beyond every universe, it's nothing but divine existence, and that's who we are. So our real nature is that infinite, divine, expansive existence, untouched by any of these small little tidbit joys and sorrows and pains and pleasures, unaffected by that. So we all seek that freedom, but our problem is we kind of go about it in the wrong way. We all seek it, but we always look for it outside. So being able to have like lots of enjoyments and more things, more money, more power, more whatever we want to have more of. You know, the latest iPhone or whatever, whether going into outer space is not going to make us free. You can pay $1 gazillion to go into space, but you're going to come back with the same mind that you went out with. It's going to be the same old mind you come back to, except you might have a little more desire or egotism because I've been to outer space. It'll just be one more chain. That doesn't give us freedom. The only thing that gives us freedom is our real nature, going within, seeking that, kind of disentangling ourselves from our wrong identification. Freedom is our very nature. We have to really remember that, because it's so easy to get kind of caught up in all this, in all the little stuff, and we get pulled down by the little stuff. And life is short. It is short. You just don't want to put your mind there. We have to remember that our real intrinsic nature is that divine reality that's absolutely free. And it's important to remember that freedom is not a quality of the Atman. It's not like, because a quality is something like my white hair, whether I'm male or female, because any quality can be changed. If something's wet, it can dry out. If something's hot, it can get cold, like my morning coffee. And anything is a quality can change. But if it's the very nature of something, it's there no matter what. It's like the ocean doesn't lose its oceanness. A fire will never lose its fireness. The Atman can never lose its intrinsic freedom, because it is freedom. It is freedom itself. And that's who we are. That's who we are. So we don't have to worry about, I don't want to lose it. You can't lose it. It is us. It's who we are. And when we remember that, we become happier. We change our identification from being a small, mortal, kind of helpless little being at the mercy of someone else's mood, someone else's bad mood, or someone else's criticism, or our own self-criticism. I'm too fat. Really? Since when does the infinite divine reality put on 8 pounds? Doesn't happen that way. We don't get stupid, we don't get Alzheimer's. The body and the mind do that. Body and mind are temporary locations. This body is a very temporary thing. We all know that, but we somehow think our case is going to be different. Never. It's 100% surety. It's going to go the other way. We have to remember we are that infinite divine existence, and then we can put things in much better perspective. Swami Vivekananda said there's but one soul throughout the universe, only one infinite divine soul, and it is all one divine existence. That's all there is. There's an incredibly powerful verse from the Svetasvatara Upanishad, which was composed around 3,500 years ago, somewhere in there, who knows. But it says, you are the woman, you being the divine, you are the woman, you are the man. You are the youth in the pride, you are the young man in the pride of youth. You are the maiden. You are the old man tottering on a stick. You are the dark blue bird. You are the green parrot with red eyes. You are the dark cloud and the lightning within the cloud. You are the seasons and the oceans. You are without beginning. All these worlds are born from you. And that you is us. That's the you. That you is us. That is who our real nature is. You are the man, you are the woman. You are the old man tottering on the stick and in the corner, drooling in one of those wheelchairs and walking around with a walker. That is you. All of us who don't want to go there, the divine can never be touched by that. Always remember when we react with other people to see the divine first and then see the limitations. See the divine first. It can really change our outlook. It can change the idea of who we are. There's only one divine existence, so we are everywhere. We're in the sun and the moon and the stars. We forget that. I had the great blessing of being with a senior Swami, Swami Lokeshwananda, who was at our Institute of Culture for many years. And before that, he founded our great school in Narendrapur, a school for the blind and a school for really talented, poor kids. And I remember him saying once, he loved to look out at the stars, which you can't do in Kolkata, but sure can in Narendrapur at the time, a village out in nowhere. And you'd look up, and he'd look up and he'd see the light of the stars, and he'd say, that reality in the stars, and the light of the stars is the same reality in my heart. And when he said that, I got chills. My hair stood up because it was his experience. And somehow, by the way he said it, he was able to convey that. And I just, when we look at the stars too, that is that within me. That's the same reality within me. I'm not limited by this body. It's all out there. It's the same reality within me. Swami Vivekananda, I keep quoting him because no one spoke better about freedom. Also, this is the day he chose to leave, July 4th, and also he loved Americans in America. He saw who we could really become, which is why he spent probably the best years of his life. He died at 39, gave almost 4 years of his life, most of his active life in this country, working without stopping, sometimes lecturing 3 times a day, answering questions till, he said, I will sit here until every person's question has been answered. He worked himself to death and was so happy to do so, just so people could feel that freedom in their hearts. So I'm happily quote Vivekananda because no one says it better. Swamiji said, everything that we perceive around us is struggling for freedom. Everything. He said, from the atom to human beings, from a lifeless particle of matter to the highest existence on earth, which is the human soul. He said the whole universe is nothing but this struggle for freedom. Where all of this that we perceive is nothing but this struggle for freedom, to move upward, to move onward, to express that divinity within itself, whether it's a rock, whether it's a tree, whether it's a amoeba or a worm, the highest saint, all struggling to express that divinity. Same with every single person, from the greatest saint that we could ever imagine to the murderer, to the thief, to the scammer, to all those irritating quotes about our car needing some extension of a warranty. All those, nothing but the highest manifestation of divinity. They're all trying to find freedom, just freedom in the wrong way. Why does a thief steal? Because he thinks if he gets that, he'll be free from want, and then he'll be happy. Why does a murderer murder? Gets that person out of his way, he'll be free from him, and then he will be happy. Why do we do anything? Why do I reach for that coffee and chocolate? Oh, free from fatigue, free from mental dullness. Why do I want that chocolate? Because I'll be free from the desire for chocolate, as if. We all seek freedom. Everybody seeks freedom one way or the other. But most people don't think about it very deeply, and so we just have that knee-jerk reaction. It's like, I want to be free, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it now because I have to be free. Instead of really thinking about, well, what is the meaning behind this, feeling like I have to be free, rather than knee-jerk, we have to just really think about it more deeply. Because all freedom requires responsibility, everything. Our responsibility is like, how does what we do in freedom, our actions, how does it affect others? How does it affect their freedom? How does it affect society? How does it affect the rest of the world around us? It has to be, we have to go there. Speaking of freedom, a core belief of the Hindu tradition is that every person has to be free to follow her or his own ideal of what their idea of the divine is. Whether it's personal or impersonal, every individual has to be perfectly free to follow their own individual inklings, their own process of growth. They all have their own, everyone has their own ideal, and everybody has their own temperament. You can't, that's why we don't do like big group meditations. Everyone think this, everybody think, it's like, that's why we believe in the importance of the guru. Everybody needs individual instruction, because every human being is different. Everybody has to go about it their own way. So it's really important. In fact, it's really interesting. The Pew Research Center, which does studies on religion and society, just came out last week, and I think they haven't done it for 20 years, research on society and religion in India. And interestingly, they said, because I just read this 5 days ago, I was so excited, it said, they said people in all 6 major religious groups overwhelmingly said they are very free to practice their faiths, and most say that people of other faiths are also very free to practice their religion. So we're talking about large majority Hindu, probably 80-something% Hindu, after that the Muslim tradition, after that Christianity, after that Sikh, Jain, Adivasi tribal religions. So that's, all these people say they feel very free to practice their religion, and every other religion feels very free too, which is fantastic, but not all that surprising, because Swami, in the Rig Veda, thousands of years ago, they said, truth is one, sages call it by various names. So the very idea of India itself was founded on this. Everybody has to have their own religious freedom to develop spiritually. You can't put your thumb down on people's spiritual growth. It will destroy them, in a sense. It will destroy who they're meant to be. Swami Vivekananda said that as shackled as India was socially, and we're talking about caste system, we're talking about just the poverty level, the lack of education for so many people, women, still, everybody had religious freedom. Everybody was free to enjoy it. And there was always complete freedom of religion. In the West, there was much more social freedom, but very, very little religious freedom. There was state-run religions. In fact, some countries that are very secular absolutely have state religions. England has a state religion. France has a state religion. Germany has a state religion. Switzerland has a state religion. All the Scandinavian countries have state religions. Now, since modern times, you're not executed, but you do pay a certain penalty if you don't practice that religion. Our center in Switzerland has had a miserable time. They cannot practice openly because it's not a state religion. Unless you're Calvinist, forget it. They can't put up a sign. They can't have public lectures. They can do interfaith, and that's it. That's it for Switzerland. Switzerland is completely secular. Still, they have state-run religions. And until modern times, you had basically all the Abrahamic traditions, where you have to believe this, you have to follow this, you have to say this prayer at this time, you have to do this, you have to believe this down the line. If you didn't do it, you were on the wrong side of God himself, and it was always a himself. The wrong side of God. And the secular authorities there would say, you believe that because you have to fit into that suit. Swami Vivekananda said, in religion, One suit does not fit all. But in Western religions, if you didn't fit into that particular state-run religious system, you would get cut to make sure you fit into that suit. India never had that tradition. Never had that tradition. Now, there's much more social freedom in the West, but religion was strictured. And now we're making up for lost time, at least in a lot of parts of this world. So every individual has their own ideal of the divine, and we really have to be able to follow that. Every person has to be able to identify upon whom to meditate, about to whom to pray. And a husband and wife in the Hindu tradition may have very different ideals of what the divine is. Some may meditate in one way, and some may believe that I love this form of God, and another person in the marriage say, no, I believe in impersonal, a formless ideal of God, and it's fine. It's not at all unusual. I may think of Jesus as my personal ideal. I may think of Buddha. I may think of Krishna or Ramakrishna or Shiva or Parvati or a divine mother, Durga, Kali. It doesn't matter as long as we have, because nobody can tell me that what I'm doing is wrong or I have to change. Nobody and nobody else either. Everybody has to have perfect freedom of religious expression. Our spiritual life cannot thrive unless we have that freedom to grow in our own way. Once, Sister Nivedita, who was an Irish disciple of Swami Vivekananda and came to serve women and the poor and everybody else in India. So she asked him, she was interviewing him, and at this time, a lot of Indians who had converted to Islam or Christianity were wanting to go back into the Hindu fold. So she asked Swami Vivekananda about, how is this going to happen? So Nivedita said that the very question, she said, are people going to choose their own path, or is a path going to be chalked out for them by someone else? That was her question. Good Irish woman who had been raised a strong Protestant in Northern Ireland. So she asked that question. She said, the question drew blood, obviously hers, by Swami Vivekananda. And she said, Swamiji was basically, obviously he was outraged, and he said, can you ask that? It's like, oh, hold your breath. He said, they will choose for themselves. He said, for unless a person chooses for themselves, the very spirit of Hinduism is destroyed. He said, the essence of our faith consists simply in this freedom of the Ishta, that is the freedom to have your own chosen ideal of God. That, he said, is the essence of the Hindu tradition, that we are free to choose to relate to the divine in the way that we find speaks to us individually. That is the basic tenet of the faith. Now, even apart from that, in the bigger picture, the ultimate goal is mukti, or moksha, spiritual freedom. It's the goal of life. We don't want to keep going around and around on this merry-go-round. We just don't want to do it. And that's why we love the 4th of July. That's why it speaks to us so much. That ideal of freedom, rather than being caught again and again, like being one of those poor critters on one of those children's rooms in that bed going round, around, 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 hoping to get somewhere. It's like, no, I'm sorry, it's going to be the same old stuff. We don't want to be there. The 4th of July is also known as Independence Day. And freedom and independence are completely connected to each other, because we cannot be completely free until we are completely independent. That is, not dependent on anyone or anything outside of ourselves to make us happy, or thinking that someone outside of myself or something outside of myself is going to make me happier than I already am, going to make me more fulfilled than I already am, going to make me more complete than I already am. There's nothing more irritating than those romantic comedies where at the end, the girl gets the boy, and happily ever after is if, and she says, I need you. It's like, It's just sickening. You can't ask somebody else to be responsible for your happiness or your fulfillment. That's your job. You bring a full plate, he brings a full plate. You make each other happy that way, not by being making someone else responsible for you. Grow up. Find it within yourself. It's interesting too that Swami Vivekananda, okay, India, women really did not have, because of many social problems, because of the invasions, because of various problems in India, the freedom that women had initially, the women in India were rishis, some of the great seers, some of the great teachers. Gradually that was worn away by succeeding invasion of armies and various other factors. So then we had the medieval codes, the laws of Manu. In the laws of Manu, it says, now this is India's social code, day and night, men should keep their women from acting independently. For as attached as they are to sensual pleasures, men should keep them under their control. Her father guards her in her childhood. Her husband guards her in her youth, and her sons guard her in her old age. A woman is not qualified to act independently. To which Swami Vivekananda had the perfect reply, the ideal of perfect womanhood is perfect independence. Don't we love Swamiji? Go Swamiji. You can just see jaws east and west like dropping. It's like, what? Because the independent Swamiji speaks of is that knowledge that we are all free and perfect, and everything is within us. We don't need someone else to make us freer than we already are, more independent than we have the capability of being, happier than we already are. When we realize we have everything and all fulfillment is within ourselves, then is when we gain real strength. Then is when we gain real happiness. Then is when we're really at peace, because nothing outside of us can affect us. Nothing can augment or take away what we already have. So how do we get it? We have to change our identification. Instead of thinking of ourselves as poor little mortals with a body and mind, think, I am the Atman. I am free. That's my real nature. We have to think sort of, we're a witness. We're watching the body and the mind react, but that isn't who we are. We have enough distance on it that we can see, oh, I see the mind's this way. Mind's going up, mind's going down. Nature of the mind. Nature of the mind. I'm not my mind because I'm observing it. I'm not my body because I can see the body reacting that way, but I'm not the body. If we can get even that much distance, we get a taste of that real freedom of who we are. We can taste it. Okay, let's say that we're more comfortable with a devotional, a personal attitude towards God. Then if we start identifying ourselves as a child of God, a friend of God, a pal of God, a beloved of God, a servant of God, then we can change our attitude as the body and mind just becomes their instruments. Our will becomes their will. What am I supposed to do? That way the ego gets under control and we're not at the mercy of our ego, which gives us so much trouble. The mind can calm down then when we put it on a bigger picture apart from myself, a higher power, if you will. So freedom is our nature, and it's really good to remember it now. We have to remember it at this time because it's the 4th of July. So the 4th of July is a really good time to be grateful that we're in a place that we can experience these freedoms, these social freedoms. Be grateful for the people who really fought hard to make this happen for us, and be grateful for the people who are still making it happen for us. It's also a great time to remember our real nature and to really strive and remember that the goal of our life is that spiritual freedom, and to know that is our real nature. One day we too shall attain it. Thank you.
Peace is his companion, the Lord times a cave is his dwelling, at times a structured home. His feet may journey far or near, still he sees all as one. He prays for all our freedom, he prays for love divine and purity of heart, that one day we might find his face alive, the Lord of love, of love, of love, of love. Peace is his companion, the Lord's name in his heart. Highest thoughts fill up his mind as he calmly plays his part. A simple life of courage, step by step with faith, knowing something higher, patiently he waits as he meditates in love, in love, in love, in love, in love.
That was beautiful, Jayanti. Thank you. We have some announcement. Next Sunday, Swami Satyamayananda will speak on why the quest for reality won't go away, which is a great topic. And then on Wednesday, we will have a reading of The Eternal Companion at 5 p.m. And the temple now, by the way, is open every day from 6:30 in the morning till 7 at night. Bookstore is only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 11 to 5, and Sunday, 10:30 to 12:30. And continuing this, Saturday, July 17th at 3 p.m. will be the memorial for Stephen Berg, whom we all miss very much, who used to be the one at the front door, always welcoming us. So his memorial will be here, 3 p.m. on Saturday the 17th. Also on the 17th will be a 5 p.m. talk by Swami Sarva Priyananda on immortality. And I will close with a chant. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.